The grey mansion stood like a fortress on Victoria Island, Lagos. Its white columns gleamed in the afternoon sun. Its marble floors reflected wealth at every turn, and its silence carried the weight of 15 broken souls who had walked out those doors in just 5 months. Inside the main sitting room, Mrs. Adesua Gray sat on a velvet chair, her spine straight as a ruler, her fingers drumming against the armrest. She was 32 years old and beautiful in the way expensive things are beautiful. Polished, perfect, untouchable. Her silk blouse cost more than most people earned in 3 months. Her wedding ring could buy a car. But her eyes were cold. "Another one quit?" she asked, not looking at the housekeeper who stood nervously by the door. "Yes, Ma, Grace left this morning. She said—" "I don't care what she said." Adesua's voice was sharp as broken glass. "Find another one, today." The housekeeper, an older woman named Mrs. Okon, twisted her hands together. "Ma, it's becoming difficult. Word has spread. The agencies are refusing to send people." Adesua finally looked at her. "Then find someone desperate enough not to care about the rumors." Mrs. Okon nodded and hurried out. She had worked for the Greys for 10 years, long before Adesua arrived. She remembered when this house had laughter in it, when Mr. Henry Gray smiled at breakfast, when staff stayed for years instead of days. That was before Adesua. Mrs. Okon made her calls from the kitchen. 3 agencies refused outright. The 4th hesitated, then mentioned someone. "Her name is Amara," the agency woman said quietly. "She's desperate. Hospital bills, sick child. She'll take any job that pays." "Send her," Mrs. Okon replied. "Today." 3 hours later, a taxi stopped at the service entrance. A woman stepped out carrying a single worn bag. She was perhaps 28, maybe 30, with tired eyes and shoulders that carried invisible weight. Her name was Amara, and she had not slept properly in 6 months. Mrs. Okon met her at the door. "You're Amara?" "Yes, Ma." The agency explained the situation. Amara nodded. She knew about the 15 maids. She knew about Mrs. Gray's reputation. She knew this was a terrible idea, but her daughter Zara was in Lagos General Hospital right now, 10 years old and fighting kidney failure, and the dialysis bills were drowning her faster than she could swim. "I need this job," Amara said simply. Mrs. Okon studied her face. There was something different about this one. A quiet strength, maybe. Or maybe just the kind of desperation that looks like courage. "Come," Mrs. Okon said. "I'll show you the house. Then you'll meet Mrs. Gray." The mansion was more beautiful than anything Amara had seen. Chandeliers like frozen waterfalls. Furniture that looked too expensive to sit on. Floors so clean they reflected her worn shoes back at her. "You'll clean the main floors," Mrs. Okon explained as they walked. "Kitchen duty in the mornings. Mrs. Gray takes her breakfast at exactly 7, not a minute before, not a minute after." "I understand. Do you?" Mrs. Okon stopped walking and turned. "Amara, I'm going to be honest with you. Mrs. Gray is difficult. She will insult you. She will test you. The last girl lasted 3 days before she ran out crying." "I won't run," Amara said. "That's what they all said." They passed through the kitchen where Rose, the cook, was chopping vegetables. She looked up, saw Amara, and shook her head sadly. "Another one," Rose muttered. "Poor thing doesn't know what she's walking into." Mrs. Okon led Amara to the main sitting room. Adesua was standing by the window now, looking out at the garden, her back to them. "Mrs. Gray, the new maid is here." Adesua turned slowly. Her eyes traveled over Amara from head to toe, taking in the worn dress, the cheap shoes, the tired face. Her lip curled slightly. "This is what they sent me," she said to Mrs. Okon, as if Amara couldn't hear. "She looks half dead already." Amara said nothing. She kept her eyes down, her hands folded. Adesua walked closer, circling Amara like a predator. "What's your name?" "Amara, Ma. Look at me when I speak to you." Amara raised her eyes. For a moment, their gazes met. Adesua expected to see fear or anger or resentment. Instead, she saw something she couldn't quite name. Something calm, something that didn't flinch. "Why do you need this job?" Adesua demanded. "My daughter is sick, Ma. Hospital bills." "Everyone has problems." Adesua waved her hand dismissively. That doesn't concern me. What concerns me is whether you can follow instructions. Can you? Yes, Ma. We'll see. Adesua turned away. Mrs. Okon, show her the rules. If she breaks even one, she's out. I don't give second chances. Yes, Ma, Mrs. Okon said, leading Amara away. When they were gone, Henry Grey emerged from his study. He had been listening. That was harsh, even for you. Adesua didn't turn around. Stay out of it, Henry. She hasn't even started working yet. Then she'll learn quickly what I expect, or she'll leave like the rest. Henry studied his wife's rigid back. What happened to you, Adesua? You weren't like this when we married. People change. Her voice was ice. No, people who are hurting build walls. There's a difference. Adesua's jaw tightened. I said stay out of it. Henry left without another word, but his footsteps were heavy with disappointment. Amara was given a small room near the kitchen. It had a bed, a chair, and a window that looked out at the staff quarters. She unpacked her single bag, 3 dresses, a photograph of Zara, and a worn Bible her mother had given her. She sat on the bed and stared at Zara's picture. Her daughter's smile was so bright in that photo, taken before the sickness, before the hospital became their second home, before dialysis became the rhythm of their lives. Just 6 months, Amara whispered to the photo. If I can survive here for 6 months, I'll have enough for your treatment. God, please let me be strong enough. A knock at the door. Rose entered with a plate of food. You should eat, she said, setting it down. Mrs. Grey doesn't allow staff to eat until after the family is served, but you look like you haven't had a proper meal in days. Thank you, Amara said, genuinely grateful. Rose sat on the chair, watching her. How desperate are you? Excuse me? To take this job, knowing what you're walking into, how desperate? Amara set down the food. My daughter needs dialysis 3 times a week. Each session costs money I don't have. Her father died 2 years ago. I have no family who can help, so yes, I'm desperate enough to endure anything. Anything at all. Rose nodded slowly. Then you might actually survive her. The others had pride. They had options. They could afford to walk away. I can't afford anything except staying. Good. Remember that when she comes at you, because she will come at you, Amara. She tests everyone, pushes until they break, and she won't stop until you either quit or… Rose trailed off. Or what? I don't know. No one's lasted long enough to find out. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She knelt by her bed and prayed, not the pretty prayers from church, but the desperate ones that come from the soul. God, I know I've been angry with you. I know I've questioned why you let Zara get sick, why you took her father, why everything is so hard. But I need you now. I need strength I don't have. Please, please help me survive this place. She climbed into bed and stared at the ceiling until exhaustion finally pulled her under. The attack came on day 2. Amara had just finished mopping the main sitting room floor. The marble gleamed like glass. She was gathering her supplies when she heard footsteps. Adesua entered, carrying a cup of coffee. She looked at the clean floor, looked at Amara, and then, deliberately, slowly, tipped the cup over. Hot coffee splashed across the pristine marble. Brown liquid spread in dark rivers across Amara's 2 hours of work. How clumsy of me, Adesua said, her voice flat. Clean it up. And this time do it properly. Amara stood frozen for just a moment. The other staff members who had witnessed this from the hallway held their breath. This was the moment when the others had snapped, had shouted, had quit. Amara bent down and picked up her mop. Yes, Ma, she said quietly. Adesua's eyes narrowed. She had expected anger. She had expected tears. This calm acceptance confused her, and confusion made her angrier. When I come back in 1 hour, Adesua said coldly, this floor should be spotless. If I see even one stain, you're fired. She walked away, her heels clicking on the clean parts of the floor. Mrs. Okon appeared beside Amara. Are you all right? I'm fine. That was deliberate. You know that, don't you? I know. Amara wrung out her mop. But getting angry won't change anything. It'll just give her what she wants. What does she want? To see me break, to prove I'm weak like the others. Amara looked at Mrs. Ocon directly. But I'm not weak, I'm just choosing my battles. And this isn't one worth fighting. Mrs. Ocon smiled sadly. You're different from the others. No, I'm just more desperate. But as Amara worked in silence, cleaning the coffee for the second time, Mrs. Ocon wondered if maybe desperation and strength looked the same from the outside. When Adesua returned exactly 1 hour later, the floor was perfect. Every trace of coffee gone, the marble gleamed even brighter than before. Adesua walked across it slowly, looking for any excuse to criticize. She found none. Was all she said before walking away. In the hallway, she passed Henry. I saw what you did, he said quietly. The coffee. So? So it was cruel and unnecessary. She's a maid, Henry. She's paid to clean. I gave her something to clean. You gave her a test designed to humiliate her. Adesua's eyes flashed. If she can't handle a little spilled coffee, how will she handle real work? Real work? Henry's voice rose slightly. Adesua, you've driven away 15 people in 5 months. 15. At some point you have to ask yourself why. I don't have to ask myself anything. I have standards. Is that a crime? Standards? Henry laughed bitterly. These aren't standards, this is cruelty. And I don't understand why. Adesua's face went cold. Then maybe you don't need to understand. Maybe you just need to mind your business. She walked away, leaving Henry staring after her with an expression of profound sadness. In the kitchen, Rose pulled Amara aside. You impressed her. That's dangerous. She'll come at you harder now. Why does she do this? Amara asked, genuinely confused. What did any of the maids do to deserve such treatment? Rose glanced around to make sure no one else was listening. No one really knows. She's been like this since she married Mr. Gray 3 years ago. Some of the older staff say she was different at first. Quieter, sadder, but not cruel. What changed? That's the question everyone asks. Mr. Gray is a good man, kind, fair. He treats us well. But her? Rose shook her head. It's like she's at war with everyone, especially herself. Has anyone tried to talk to her? Really talk to her? Are you mad? Who would dare? She'd fire them on the spot. Amara was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she said something that made Rose stare at her. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe no one's ever dared. Day 5 brought a new test. Amara was serving dinner. Mr. Henry Gray was home, a tall, quiet man in his late 30s who rarely spoke. He sat at the head of the table while Adesua sat to his right. Amara brought out the soup Rose had prepared. As she placed the bowl in front of Adesua, her hand trembled slightly. The bowl tilted, just a fraction, just enough. Adesua's hand shot out and grabbed Amara's wrist. Hard. Careful, she hissed. That bowl costs 50,000 naira, more than you'll earn in 6 months. If you drop it, I'll take it from your salary for the next year. Amara steadied the bowl. I'm sorry, Ma. Sorry isn't good enough. Adesua's grip tightened. Pain shot up Amara's arm. Maybe you're too weak for this job, too useless, too… Adesua! Mr. Henry's voice was quiet but firm. Let her go. She needs to learn respect, Henry. She's doing her job. Let her go. For a moment, they stared at each other across the table. Then Adesua released Amara's wrist and sat back. Fine. But if she drops anything, it's coming from her salary. Amara finished serving and retreated to the kitchen, her wrist throbbing and red with fingerprints. Henry waited until Amara was gone, then set down his fork. We need to talk about this. About what? About your behavior, about the way you treat the staff, about the way you've changed. Adesua picked up her wine glass. I haven't changed. You've just started paying attention. That's not true. 3 years ago, you were different. Quieter, yes. Reserved, but not cruel. What happened, Adesua? What made you like this? Like what? Demanding? Expecting quality work? No. Mean. Deliberately, methodically mean. You don't just expect good work. You sabotage people so they'll fail. You test them until they break. Why? Adesua's hand tightened on her glass. Maybe I'm tired of weak people. Maybe I'm tired of people who can't handle pressure. Or maybe, Henry said softly, you're tired of carrying whatever pain you're hiding, so you're spreading it to everyone around you. Adesua stood up abruptly, her chair scraping. I've lost my appetite. Good night, Henry. She walked out, leaving her husband sitting alone at a table set for two, wondering how to reach a wife who had locked herself away behind walls he couldn't scale. That night, alone in her room, Amara looked at Zara's photograph and cried quietly. Her wrist still hurt, her body ached from long hours of work, and she had 23 more weeks of this to survive. I don't know if I can do this, baby, she whispered to the photo. She's so cruel, and I don't understand why. I haven't done anything to her. But then she thought about Zara in that hospital bed, thought about the dialysis machine keeping her alive, thought about the bills stacking up like an impossible mountain. She wiped her tears and straightened her shoulders. Yes, I can, she said firmly. I can do this, because you need me to. She lay down but didn't sleep. Tomorrow would bring new attacks. She knew that. Adesua was just beginning, but Amara had survived worse than a cruel employer. She had watched her daughter's health collapse. She had buried her husband 2 years ago while 5 months pregnant with nowhere to turn. She had learned that strength wasn't about fighting back. Sometimes strength was about simply refusing to break. The abuse escalated methodically over the following days. On day 8, Rose, acting on Adesua's whispered instructions that Amara didn't hear, added excessive salt to the jollof rice. When Adesua tasted it at lunch, she exploded. Who cooked this garbage? She demanded, throwing her fork down with a clatter. Rose stayed silent, eyes down. Amara prepared the rice this morning, Ma, Mrs. Okon said reluctantly. It was true, Amara had helped with prep work, though Rose had done the actual cooking. Adesua stood up, her chair scraping loudly. Amara appeared from the kitchen, her hands still wet from washing dishes. Yes, Ma. Taste this, Adesua commanded, shoving the plate toward her. Amara took a small bite. Her face barely changed, but the salt was overwhelming. It burned her tongue. It's too salty, Ma. I'm sorry. I'll remake it immediately. You'll remake it? Adesua's voice was dangerously soft. She walked closer, circling Amara. Do you know how much food you've wasted? How much money? How much of my money? I'll be more careful, Ma. Careful? Adesua stepped even closer, invading Amara's space. You're not careful. You're incompetent. Useless. I don't know why I keep you here. Maybe I should just fire you now and save myself the trouble. Amara kept her eyes down, but her voice was steady. I'm sorry, Ma. It won't happen again. Won't happen again? Adesua laughed, a cold sound with no humor in it. That's what they all say, right before they mess up again. She raised her hand. The slap came fast and hard, echoing through the dining room like a gunshot. Amara's head turned with the force of it. Her cheek immediately reddened. The staff froze. Mrs. Okon gasped. Rose dropped the spoon she was holding. Mr. Henry, who had been reading the newspaper, stood up so fast his chair fell over. Adesua! But Amara was already straightening slowly. Her cheek was red and swelling. Her eyes were wet with tears that refused to fall, but she didn't cry, she didn't shout, she didn't run. I'll remake the rice, Ma, she said, her voice steady despite the tremor underneath. Adesua stared at her, breathing hard. This woman wouldn't break. Why wouldn't she break? Everyone broke eventually. Everyone had a limit. But Amara just stood there, calm and unshakable, and something about that made Adesua even angrier. Or maybe it wasn't anger. Maybe it was something else, something that felt like fear. Get out of my sight, Adesua said finally. Amara turned and walked back to the kitchen, her head held high despite the burning pain in her cheek. Henry crossed the room toward his wife. What is wrong with you? She ruined lunch. So you hit her? You physically assaulted an employee. I barely touched her. Barely. Henry stopped, took a breath, tried to control his temper. Adesua, this has to stop. You can't treat people like this. It's not right, it's not legal, and it's not you. You don't know who I am anymore, Henry. Then help me understand. Talk to me. Tell me what's happening inside that head of yours. Adasua's eyes flashed with something. Pain, maybe, or rage, or some terrible combination of both. You want to understand? Fine. I'm protecting myself. I'm making sure no one ever has power over me again. I'm making sure I'm never weak, never helpless, never… She stopped abruptly, her jaw clenching. Never what? Henry asked gently, but Adasua had already rebuilt her walls. Nothing, forget it. She walked out, leaving Henry standing in the dining room, more lost than ever. In the kitchen, Rose grabbed Amara's arm and pulled her to the corner. I'm so sorry. She made me add the salt. She told me to blame you. I should have warned you. Amara touched her burning cheek carefully. I know. Then why didn't you defend yourself? Why didn't you tell Mr. Henry the truth? What good would it do? Amara began pulling out ingredients for new rice, her movements methodical despite the pain. She wants me to quit. If I fight back, I give her what she wants. If I tattle to Mr. Henry, she'll find another reason to fire me. I can't afford to quit, Rose, and I can't afford to be fired. So I stay, and I endure. Rose watched her work. This woman who had just been slapped and humiliated, but was already starting over. You're stronger than you look. I'm not strong, Amara said quietly, measuring rice with shaking hands. I'm just desperate. There's a difference. But watching her work, her movements careful and precise despite the red mark on her face, despite the tears she was clearly holding back, Rose wasn't so sure. This was strength. It just didn't look like the kind people expected. From the dining room doorway, Mr. Henry Gray watched the kitchen. He had watched Amara for 8 days now. Watched her take abuse that would have broken anyone else. Watched her maintain dignity under assault. Watched her get up every time Adasua knocked her down. He made a decision. That evening, he went to the kitchen and found Amara cleaning up after dinner. Amara, can I speak with you? She straightened immediately, nervous. Yes, sir. Did I do something wrong? No, actually, you've done everything right, which is why I want to apologize. Amara blinked in surprise. Sir? For my wife's behavior, for the way she's treated you, it's inexcusable. He pulled out an envelope. This is a bonus, 50,000 naira, for putting up with circumstances no one should have to endure. Amara stared at the envelope like it might disappear. 50,000 naira. That was nearly 2 months of dialysis. Sir, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just know that someone sees what you're going through, and someone appreciates your strength. He paused. Can I ask you something? Of course, sir. Why do you stay? You're clearly intelligent, capable. You could find work somewhere else. Somewhere better. Amara looked down at the envelope in her hands. My daughter, sir, Zara. She's 10 years old and she has kidney failure. Without regular dialysis, she'll die. I need this job because the pay is good enough to cover her treatments. That's why I stay. That's why I'll keep staying, no matter what. Henry felt his chest tighten. I'm sorry, I had no idea. Why would you, sir? It's not your concern. Maybe it should be. He thought for a moment. What hospital is she at? Lagos General Hospital, sir. And her treatment, is it sufficient? Amara's face tightened slightly. We do the best we can with what we have. The doctors are good, but she needs a transplant eventually. And that's… She trailed off. Expensive, Henry finished. Impossible, sir. That's what it is. Impossible, Henry nodded slowly. Keep the money, and Amara, thank you for your patience, for your grace under pressure. You're a remarkable woman. After he left, Amara sat down on a kitchen stool and finally let herself cry. Not from the pain of the slap, not from exhaustion or fear, but from kindness, because she had forgotten what that felt like. Week 3 brought the turning point, though no one knew it yet. It was midnight when Amara woke to sounds from the main house. Crying, soft but desperate, like an animal caught in a trap. She lay in bed for a moment, then pulled on her robe and walked quietly through the dark halls toward the sound. The crying came from the main sitting room. Amara paused at the doorway, her heart pounding. She should turn around, should pretend she heard nothing. Getting involved with Adasua's private moments would only bring more trouble. But the crying was so broken, so utterly, devastatingly broken. And Amara knew that sound. She had made it herself many nights, alone in her room after Zara's diagnosis, after her husband's funeral, in her darkest moments when she wasn't sure she could survive another day. She stepped into the room. Adesua sat on the floor, not on the expensive furniture, but on the cold marble floor, her knees pulled to her chest, her face buried in her arms. She wore a nightgown and looked nothing like the polished, cruel woman who terrorized the staff. She looked broken. "Mrs. Gray?" Adesua's head snapped up. Her eyes were swollen, her makeup smeared down her cheeks in dark rivers. For a moment, pure vulnerability flashed across her face. Then the walls slammed back up. "Get out," she hissed. Amara didn't move. "Are you hurt, Ma? Should I call someone?" "I said get out." "I'll leave in a moment, but first let me help you to your room. The floor is cold. You'll get sick." Adesua laughed bitterly, a sound like breaking glass. "Why would you help me? I've been nothing but cruel to you. I slapped you. I humiliate you. I've made your life hell. Why would you possibly want to help me?" Amara moved closer and sat down on the floor beside her, not touching but close enough to feel her presence, close enough to offer comfort without forcing it. "Because you're hurting," Amara said simply, "and I know what that looks like. I've been there." Adesua stared at her with red, swollen eyes. "You know nothing about me. I know you're in pain. I don't know why, but I recognize it. I've lived with that kind of pain." Amara looked down at her hands. "After my husband died, I spent 3 months sitting on my bathroom floor at night, crying just like this. My daughter was sick. I had no money, no hope. I thought I would drown in the pain. So yes, Mrs. Gray, I know exactly what this is." They sat in silence. The grandfather clock in the hall ticked steadily. Outside, Lagos was quiet for once. No generators, no traffic, no music. Just silence and 2 women and the weight of their separate griefs. Finally, Adesua spoke, her voice so quiet Amara almost didn't hear it. "Why don't you quit? Why do you let me treat you this way?" Amara took a slow breath. "Because I have a daughter who's dying. Her name is Zara. She's 10 years old. She has kidney failure. Without dialysis 3 times a week, she'll die. The hospital bills are crushing me, Mrs. Gray. Every single day, I'm drowning a little more. I need this job. I need it more than I need my pride, more than I need my dignity. I need it more than air because without it, my daughter dies." Her voice broke on the last word. Adesua turned to look at her fully now. Really look at her. "Kidney failure?" "Yes, Ma." Something shifted in Adesua's face. Pain, recognition, memory flooding back. Her hands began to shake. How long has she been sick? 6 months diagnosed, but she was showing symptoms for almost a year before that. "We're on a waiting list for a transplant, but it's government hospital. The list is so long, and we can't afford the private route." Amara wiped her eyes. "So we wait, and we pray, and we hope she survives long enough to get her turn." Adesua's breathing had changed. Faster, shallower, her whole body was trembling now. "Mrs. Gray? Are you all right?" "I had a daughter once," Adesua whispered, the words sounding like they'd been locked away for years. "Her name was Kioma." Amara stayed still, afraid the confession might stop. "I was 19, unmarried. My family disowned me when they found out I was pregnant, called me a disgrace, threw me out with nothing." "I'm so sorry," Amara said. "I had her anyway. I named her Kioma because I believed God was still good. She was beautiful, perfect, with big eyes that looked at me like I was her whole world. And I was." Tears streamed down Adesua's face. When she was 2, she got sick, started swelling, stopped eating. The clinic said kidney disease, advanced. She needed immediate treatment, maybe a transplant. Adesua's hands clenched. "But I lived in one room in Mushin. I worked 3 jobs, washing clothes, cleaning offices, selling food, and it still wasn't enough. I had no money, no connections, no power." "What happened?" Amara asked softly, though she already knew. "I watched my baby fade for 8 months. She'd cry and ask why she hurt. Ask me to make it stop. And I couldn't. She died in my arms at 2 years, 8 months. And it was my fault. I was too poor, too powerless to save her." Amara felt her own tears fall. Mrs. Gray, the system failed you. You didn't kill her. Then why does it feel like I did? Adesua whispered. Why do I still hear her crying? Because you loved her, and you always will. Adesua curled into herself. After she died, I promised I'd never be weak again. I built all this. I married Henry for power. I became hard, cruel, because cruelty felt safe. But you're still hurting, Amara said. Every day, and when I see people struggling, I try to break them to prove weakness is dangerous. But I'm not breaking, Amara said. No, you're not. How? Because my daughter needs me strong. Amara took her hand. Real strength is staying open, even when it hurts. I don't know how to do that anymore. Then learn. Start small. Start tomorrow. They sat together on that cold floor for another hour. Two women, connected by the cruelest bond. The terror of losing a child, one who had lost, one who was still fighting. When they finally stood, Adesua looked at Amara and said something she hadn't said in years. Thank you. For what, Ma? For not running, for seeing my pain even when I tried to hide it behind cruelty. She paused, for reminding me I used to be human. Amara smiled sadly. You're still human, Mrs. Gray. You just forgot for a while. After Amara left, Adesua stood alone in the sitting room. She walked to the window and looked out at the dark garden. For the first time in 3 years, she felt something crack inside her. Not breaking, not shattering, opening. The next morning, everything was different. Amara came to serve breakfast, prepared for another day of tests and cruelty. But when she set down Adesua's tea, something happened that made every staff member in the vicinity freeze. Thank you, Amara, Adesua said, not coldly, not sarcastically, but genuinely. Amara's hand trembled on the teapot. You're welcome, Ma. Mrs. Okon and Rose, watching from the kitchen doorway, exchanged shocked glances. When Henry came down for breakfast, he immediately noticed the change in atmosphere. Adesua wasn't tense, wasn't looking for faults. She sat quietly, sipping her tea, looking tired but somehow more peaceful than he'd seen her in years. Good morning, he said carefully. Good morning, Henry. They ate in comfortable silence. When Amara came to clear the dishes, Adesua spoke again. How is your daughter today? Amara nearly dropped the plate she was holding. Ma. Your daughter, Zara, how is she? She's stable, Ma. Thank you for asking. When do you visit her next? Sunday morning, Ma. I have permission for 4 hours. Adesua set down her napkin. No. You'll go today. Take the car. James will drive you, and you'll stay as long as you need. The plate actually slipped from Amara's fingers. She caught it at the last second. Ma, I couldn't possibly. You can, you will. That's not a request, Amara. It's an order. Amara's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Ma. God bless you. Thank you. After Amara hurried away to get ready, Henry stared at his wife. What happened? What do you mean? Adesua, you just thanked a staff member. You're sending her to visit her sick child with our car. You're different. What happened? Adesua was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I had a conversation about pain, about children, about what really matters. With who? With someone who showed me what strength actually looks like. She stood and walked to the window, the same window where she'd stood countless times before. But today, the view looked different. Lighter somehow. Henry came up behind her. Adesua, talk to me. Really talk to me, please. She turned in his arms, really turned, really let him hold her, for the first time in over a year. I'm tired, Henry. I'm so tired of being angry, of being cruel, of building walls. I don't want to be this person anymore. Then don't be. We'll work on it together. Whatever you're carrying, you don't have to carry it alone. I lost a daughter, Adesua said, the words finally spoken to her husband after 3 years of silence. Before I met you. Her name was Kioma. She died of kidney disease because I was too poor to save her. Henry's arms tightened around her. Oh, Adesua, I'm so sorry. Why didn't you tell me? Because admitting she existed meant admitting I failed her, admitting I was weak, and I couldn't. I couldn't be weak again. Grief isn't weakness. Love isn't weakness. You were young and alone, and you survived an impossible situation. That's not failure, that's courage. Adesua cried against his chest, really cried, the way she'd needed to cry for 3 years but hadn't allowed herself. And Henry held her through it all, grateful that the walls were finally coming down. At Lagos General Hospital, Amara found Zara sitting up in bed, looking pale but alert. When she saw her mother arrive in a chauffeur-driven car, her thin face lit up. "Mama, whose car is that?" Amara rushed over and gathered her daughter carefully into her arms. "My employer sent it, baby, with the driver. He's going to wait as long as we need." She must be really nice. Amara thought about the slap, the coffee, the salt, the cruelty. Then she thought about last night, about 2 women sitting on a floor, sharing pain, about walls cracking open, about humanity returning. "She's trying to be," Amara said softly. "She's learning." They spent the day together. Amara read to Zara from her favorite books, braided her thin hair gently, smuggled in her favorite snacks, plantain chips and digestive biscuits. When the doctor came by for rounds, he smiled at seeing them together. "She's doing well today," Dr. Adeyemi said. "The dialysis yesterday went smoothly. She's responding well to the medications." "Is there any update on the transplant list?" Amara asked the question she asked every visit, hope and fear mixing in equal measure. Dr. Adeyemi's face grew more serious. "Amara, I want to be honest with you. Zara's been on the list for 6 months. In the government system, it could be years before a match is found. Years she might not have." Amara felt the floor tilt beneath her. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we need to explore other options, private programs, medical tourism, experimental treatments, something beyond just waiting." "I can't afford any of that, doctor. You know I can't." "I know, but I wanted you to be prepared. Zara's kidney function is declining faster than we'd like. If we don't find a solution soon..." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. After he left, Amara sat beside Zara's bed, holding her daughter's hand, trying not to let her fear show. "Mama, are you sad?" Zara asked in her small voice. "No, baby, just thinking." "About what?" "About how strong you are, how brave, about how proud I am to be your mother." Zara smiled. "I get my strength from you. That's what Daddy used to say. He said you were the strongest person he knew." Amara kissed her daughter's forehead, fighting tears. "Your daddy was a wise man." Outside in the car, James the driver made a phone call. "Mrs. Gray, yes ma, we're still at the hospital. I can see them through the window. The child looks very sick ma, very thin, very weak." He listened. "Yes ma, the mother is crying now." "Yes ma, I understand. I'll tell her when she comes out." 3 hours later, when Amara finally emerged from the hospital, exhausted and heartbroken, James delivered his message. "Mrs. Gray called, Ma. She says you should not worry about rushing back. She says take all the time you need with your daughter, and she asked me to give you this." He handed her an envelope. Inside was 200,000 naira and a note in Adesua's handwriting. "For Zara's medical bills, more will come. I couldn't save my daughter, but maybe I can help save yours. AG." Amara sat in the back of the luxury car and cried so hard she thought she might break apart from the force of it. Not from pain this time, from hope, from gratitude, from the kindness of a woman who had been cruel just yesterday but was learning to be human again. James silently passed tissues to the back seat and waited patiently for her tears to stop, his own eyes suspiciously wet. When they returned to the mansion, Adesua was waiting in the sitting room. She stood when Amara entered. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Employer and employee, 2 mothers, 2 survivors. Then Amara crossed the room and hugged Adesua tightly. Adesua stiffened for just a second, then slowly, awkwardly, hugged her back. "Thank you," Amara whispered. "You're saving her life." "I'm trying," Adesua replied quietly. "I'm trying to do something good for once." When they separated, both women had tears in their eyes. "I have more ideas," Adesua said, "for helping Zara. I made some calls today. I have connections in the medical community, people who might be able to help. Can we talk?" "Of course, Ma." "And Amara? Call me Adesua, at least when we're alone. I think we're past formalities, don't you? Amara smiled through her tears. Yes, Ma. Yes, Adesua. That evening, the entire staff noticed the change. It wasn't dramatic. Adesua didn't suddenly become warm and fuzzy, but she said please and thank you. She didn't sabotage anyone's work. She didn't look for reasons to criticize. At dinner, Henry couldn't stop smiling. You're different, he said when they were alone. I'm trying to be. No, you're not trying to be different. You're trying to be yourself again, the woman I fell in love with, the woman who got buried under pain and walls. Adesua reached across the table and took his hand. I'm sorry, Henry, for everything, for shutting you out, for becoming someone you couldn't recognize. I'm going to do better. We'll do it together, he promised. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. That night, Amara knelt by her bed and prayed with real hope for the first time in months. Thank you, God. Thank you for sending me to this place. I thought it was punishment. I thought I'd have to endure hell to save Zara, but maybe you sent me here to save more than just my daughter. Maybe you sent me to help heal a broken woman too. Thank you. Thank you for hope. She climbed into bed and slept deeply, dreamlessly, peacefully. The next morning brought another surprise. Adesua asked Amara to join her in the study after breakfast. I've been making calls, Adesua said, gesturing for Amara to sit. I have a friend, Dr. Ifeoma Okoro. She runs the kidney transplant program at Lagoon Hospital. It's the best private program in West Africa. I've heard of it, Amara said, but I could never afford. Let me finish. Dr. Ifeoma also runs a foundation. It provides free transplants to children in need. They select cases based on medical urgency and family circumstances. I told her about Zara. Amara's heart began to race. And? She wants to meet you today. There's a women's luncheon at the Echo Hotel. Medical professionals, philanthropists, influential women. I'm taking you with me. Ma, Adesua, I can't go to something like that. I don't have anything appropriate to wear. I don't belong in those spaces. Adesua stood. Then we'll fix the first problem. And as for belonging, you belong anywhere I say you belong. Now come, we're going shopping. An hour later, Amara stood in an expensive boutique on Victoria Island, overwhelmed by racks of clothing she couldn't even dream of affording. Try this, Adesua said, handing her an elegant blue dress. Adesua, this costs more than I make in 3 months. Good thing I'm paying then, try it on. The dress fit perfectly. When Amara looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She looked like someone successful, someone confident, someone who belonged in beautiful spaces. Better, Adesua said, surveying her with approval. Now shoes. This is too much. Amara, let me do this. Please, I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Let me spend some of it on something that actually matters. They bought the dress, shoes, and a simple but elegant handbag. When they left the boutique, Amara was carrying bags that cost more than everything she owned combined. I don't know how to thank you, she said as they drove toward the hotel. Then don't. Just show Dr. Ifeoma what a strong, remarkable woman you are. Show her why Zara deserves this chance. The Echo Hotel ballroom was filled with Lagos's elite women. Doctors, lawyers, businesswomen, politicians' wives. Women dripping in jewelry and confidence. Amara felt completely out of place despite her new dress. Stay close, Adesua murmured, and remember, you're not less than anyone here. You're just different. Different isn't inferior. They found their table where 3 well-dressed women were already seated. Adesua made introductions. Ladies, this is Amara. Amara, this is Dr. Ifeoma Okoro, Dr. Chidinma Nwosu, and Mrs. Funmi Lawal. They're all involved in pediatric health initiatives. Dr. Ifeoma was a striking woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a firm handshake. Adesua told me about your daughter. Please, sit. Tell me about Zara. Over lunch, Amara told Zara's story, the diagnosis, the symptoms they'd missed for months, the fear of every hospital visit, the crushing weight of watching your child suffer, the impossible calculus of choosing between rent and dialysis. The women listened intently. Dr. Ifeoma took notes, asked questions about Zara's medical history, her current treatment, her prognosis. "You said she's at Lagos General?" Dr. Ifeoma asked. "Yes. Dr. Adeyemi is her primary doctor." "I know him. Good doctor, but limited resources." Dr. Ifeoma set down her pen and looked at Amara directly. "Here's what I can do. Bring me Zara's complete medical records. I'll review them personally. If she qualifies for our foundation program, and from what you're telling me, she should, we can fast-track her evaluation." Amara could barely breathe. Truly, our foundation handles emergency cases for children. If we find a match through our donor network, we cover everything: surgery, recovery, post-op care, medications, everything. I don't have words." Dr. Ifeoma smiled. "You don't need words. Just bring me those records this week. We'll move quickly. Time matters with kidney failure." Amara looked at Adesua, who was smiling genuinely for the first time since Amara had known her. "Thank you," Amara whispered. "Both of you, thank you." On the drive back to the mansion, Amara couldn't stop crying. Hope had seemed so impossible for so long, and now here it was, real and tangible. "Why are you doing this?" she asked Adesua. "Why are you helping me so much?" Adesua was quiet for a moment, staring out the window at Lagos passing by. "Because I couldn't save Kioma, because I was powerless then. But I'm not powerless now. I have money, I have connections, I have the ability to help. And maybe—" Her voice caught. "Maybe if I can save your daughter, it won't hurt so much that I couldn't save mine." Amara reached over and squeezed her hand. "Kioma would be proud of who you're becoming." Adesua squeezed back, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. The following week moved in a blur of medical appointments, paperwork and tests. Dr. Ifeoma reviewed Zara's case personally. More specialists were brought in. Donor databases were searched with urgency. And then, miracle of miracles, a match was found. Dr. Ifeoma called Amara herself to deliver the news. "We have a donor, adult donor, good match. We can schedule surgery for next month if Zara's stable enough." Amara collapsed in the mansion hallway where she'd been standing when her phone rang. Her legs simply gave out. Mrs. Okon found her there, sobbing on the floor, phone still clutched in her hand. "Amara, what's wrong? What happened?" "She's getting her transplant," Amara sobbed. "My baby is getting her transplant. She's going to live. She's going to live." The news spread through the mansion like wildfire. Staff members came running. Rose cried. Mrs. Okon prayed aloud. James pumped his fist in the air. When Adesua heard, she found Amara still sitting on the hallway floor, surrounded by celebrating staff. Their eyes met across the crowd. Adesua nodded once, a simple gesture that meant, "I'm glad. I'm so glad." Amara mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." The surgery was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Those 3 weeks were the longest and shortest of Amara's life. Adesua quietly paid for everything. Additional tests, pre-surgery consultations, nutritional supplements to strengthen Zara before the operation. She never made a big deal of it, just handled things in the background. The mansion had transformed completely. Staff no longer walked on eggshells. Conversations happened openly. Laughter echoed through the halls. Henry pulled Amara aside one evening. "Whatever you did, whatever you said to my wife, thank you. You gave me back the woman I married. She was always there, sir. She just needed someone to see past the walls. Still, thank you." The night before Zara's surgery, Adesua found Amara sitting in the garden, staring up at the stars. "Can't sleep?" Adesua asked, sitting beside her. "Too nervous. What if something goes wrong? What if—" "It won't. Dr. Ifeoma is the best. Zara is strong. And you're going to be there when she wakes up. Will you come, tomorrow, to the hospital?" Adesua looked surprised. "You want me there?" "Of course. You're—" Amara paused, choosing her words carefully. "You're family now, aren't you?" Adesua felt tears prick her eyes. Family? When had anyone last called her family? "Yes," she said softly. "Yes, I suppose I am." They sat together under the stars, 2 women who had started as enemies and become something much deeper, something forged in pain and healed through hope. The surgery took 8 hours. Amara, Adesua, Henry, and the entire household staff waited in the hospital lounge. They prayed. They paced. They held each other through the waiting. When Dr. Ifeoma finally emerged in her surgical scrubs, everyone stood at once. "The surgery was successful," she announced, smiling. "Zara's new kidney is functioning well. She's in recovery. She's going to be fine." Amara's legs gave out again. This time, it was Adesua who caught her, holding her up while they both cried. "She made it," Amara sobbed. "My baby made it." "Yes," Adesua whispered, her own face wet with tears. "Yes, she did." 5 days after the transplant, Zara was moved from ICU to a regular room. Her color had already improved dramatically. Her eyes were brighter. She smiled more easily. When Adesua visited for the first time since the surgery, Zara was sitting up in bed, playing with a puzzle Mrs. Okon had brought. "Are you Mama's boss?" Zara asked, looking up. "I am," Adesua said. She sat carefully on the edge of the bed. "But your mother tells me you're very brave, braver than any boss." Zara giggled. "Mama's the brave one. She never gives up, even when things are really, really hard." Adesua glanced at Amara, who was standing nearby. "Yes, she is brave." "Do you have kids?" Zara asked innocently. The question hit Adesua like a physical blow. Amara tensed, ready to intervene, but Adesua answered quietly, "I had a daughter once. Her name was Kioma. She would be about your age now." "What happened to her?" "She got sick, like you did, but back then I couldn't save her." Zara thought about this with the seriousness only children can manage. "I'm sorry she died, but you know what? I bet she's happy you helped me get better. I bet she's smiling in heaven." Something in Adesua's chest cracked open. She reached out and gently touched Zara's cheek. "You're very wise for 10 years old. That's what Mama says too." Before leaving, Adesua pulled Amara aside. "She's wonderful. You've raised an amazing daughter. Thank you. For everything. For all of this. I don't... Stop thanking me. We're past that now." Adesua reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. "This is for you. Don't open it until I'm gone." After she left, Amara opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a letter and a check for 5 million naira. The letter read, "Amara, 3 months ago, you walked into my house as a desperate woman looking for work. I tested you, I hurt you. I tried to break you, but you refused to break. Instead, you broke me. You broke down walls I'd spent years building. You showed me that strength isn't about cruelty, it's about surviving cruelty with grace. The money is for Zara's recovery, her education, your future. But I'm also offering you a new position, Chief Household Coordinator. You won't serve in my house anymore. You'll help me run it. Better salary. Your own apartment within the mansion. Full medical coverage for you and Zara forever. Not because I'm your employer, but because you're family. If you accept, know this. You saved my daughter by letting me help save yours. You saved my marriage by showing me how to be human again. You saved me by refusing to let my cruelty destroy your kindness. Thank you for being the impossible thing, someone who wouldn't break. Adesua." Amara read it 3 times, tears streaming down her face before she could process what it meant. 2 weeks later, Zara was discharged from the hospital. She moved into the mansion with Amara. Adesua had converted an entire wing into an apartment for them. 2 bedrooms, a sitting room, a small kitchen. More space than Amara had ever dreamed of. The first evening there, Zara explored every corner with delight, while Amara unpacked their few belongings in their new home. "Mama, there's a garden," Zara called from the window. "With a big tree. Can I play there?" "After dinner," Amara promised. "And after you rest. You're still healing, remember?" That evening, the entire household gathered in the garden for a celebration. Rose had cooked Zara's favorite foods. Mrs. Okon had decorated the mango tree with lights. James had bought toys. The other staff had pitched in for gifts. Zara sat in the center of it all, laughing and smiling, looking healthier than Amara had seen her in over a year. Adesua and Henry watched from the veranda. "You did a good thing," Henry said, pulling his wife close. "We did a good thing. You supported me through all of this." I'm proud of you, of who you're becoming, of who you're remembering how to be." Adesua leaned into him. "I'm not there yet. Some days are still hard. Some days I still want to build the walls back up." "But you don't. That's what matters." They watched Zara play, watched Amara smile, watched their household celebrate life instead of endure cruelty. "Henry," Adesua said quietly, "I want to expand this, the foundation, help more children like Zara, more mothers like Amara. I think that's a wonderful idea. Will you help me? Always, whatever you need." As darkness fell over Lagos that evening, the grey mansion glowed with light and life and love that had been earned through hardship and healed through grace. And somewhere in heaven, a little girl named Kioma smiled, finally at peace. Her mother had learned that losing her wasn't the end. It was the beginning of learning how to save someone else, and in that salvation, she had found her own. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible tales of transformation and hope. Drop a comment and tell us, what moment made you cry? What lesson are you taking from Amara and Adesua's journey? Remember, sometimes the people who hurt us most are just wounded souls waiting for someone brave enough to see past their pain. Until next time, stay blessed and stay strong.